Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to QuickBooks Labs. QuickBooks Labs is a fortnightly podcast designed to be the place to learn all about the world of QuickBooks and other accounting software. Every 2 weeks, or we hope it's every 2 weeks. We've been kind of slack lately, but we will make sure we fix that going forward. We hang around these microphones to talk about all the latest news, tips, tricks for everything in QuickBooks and beyond. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Patrick, a chartered accountant, owner of an accounting firm called Boffix, and a QB certified trainer with a fancy new logo just up here, and the QuickBooks chat on YouTube. Join me, as always, is my co-host, the one and only Ash. How's it going, Ash?
Fantastic, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, me, Ash Beetson, QuickBooks trainer / accountant / bookkeeper / app developer, jack of all trades, master of none, but I do try my best. So that's a little bit about me. I'll pass it over to you, Aaron, so we can explain how the podcast works.
Brilliant. Well, we have a cracker for today. As always, we've got a brilliant guest to bring on and a little bit of news as well to talk about. So we should have plenty to go with. First of all, we are live to the world at our regular time of 4:30 UK time, usually every other Tuesday, and that's 10:30 a.m. US Central Time. So if you listen to this back at a later time, then why not think about joining us live? That way you get involved with the show and ask us anything using the chat box. We've already got people live and no doubt will be asking questions as we go along. So that's the whole point of joining us live, and don't be afraid to ask those burning questions. Furthermore, we are now live on the podcasting services around the globe, so feel free to subscribe to your podcast service of choice and go from there. Ash, shall we bring on our guest and move straight into the news?
I think so, yes. Let's bring in Brad. So I'd like to welcome Brad Kalmanis all the way over from Canada. Thanks for joining us, Brad.
You almost got my name right there, Ash, but thanks for having me, Ash. It's Kalmanis, soft C there.
Sorry.
Greetings from Canada. I don't know what gave it away, but... yeah, I'm Brad Salmanis from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm a recovering CPA. I actually don't have my letters anymore. Spent, close to 30 years in industry, left public practice a long time ago. So I'm really established in the QuickBooks community here in Canada. So that's how I met Ash.
Thanks for that, Brad.
Love the Net Tracker app.
Thanks, mate. We'll come back and chat to you more shortly, Brad. But Aaron's going to bring in the news about Revolut and a couple of other things. But feel free to chip in on anything that we're chatting about. It's all good.
Absolutely. I know what fortnight means. Or yeah, what did you say? Every 2 weeks, right?
Every 2 weeks. Yeah. Well, we're not quite making it every 2 weeks at the moment. We do try. We
I knew what that meant.
So we're not completely turned into different language.
I do. Not everybody does know what the fortnight means.
Like I was telling you guys offline, I understand English, British English.
Yeah. Well done.
If you don't know Canadian English, I'll translate.
We might have to pull you up on a few bits.
All right.
Okay, then. So we're a bit light on the news today, but we have found some really interesting topics, and especially when we look at the future of what we believe is going to happen with the world of QuickBooks. So in fact, I was about to share the screen, but there's no real benefit for me sharing. So one of the things that is coming up in QuickBooks in very near time, or we hope's near time, is all around QuickBooks Bank. And that was the big thing they announced at the last QuickBooks Connect here in the UK. I'm hoping we get to listen to what's happening to QuickBooks over at Connect over at Canada later in the show. But in the UK, we were listening or we were learning all about the QuickBooks Bank. And the idea there, if you remember, is about having a bank built directly within QuickBooks. So owned by Intuit, it's going to have the same functionality you'd expect from a challenger bank, we hope. And the idea is then that you can manage it and you can make payments and all that sort of stuff from inside QuickBooks itself. The idea is brilliant. Now, the systems, or what we found out afterwards, is what it's all run on, and it's run on a solution called Modular. And Modular is the same solution that Revolut is using. So what I've been doing is keeping a really close eye on things that are happening in the world of Revolut, in the world of what's happening there, to try and gauge a little bit into what we can expect hopefully is going to happen within QuickBooks itself. Now, Revolut's gone down a process, it looks like, where they're going to partner up with ClearBooks, which is a solution very similar to QuickBooks itself. And with this new partnership, they've enabled some really cool features that may pave an idea or give us some indication of what QuickBooks Bank's going to do as well. So, for example, ClearBooks and Revolut launched their new payment feature. And with this new payment feature, you actually get to pay bills from directly in ClearBooks itself from Revolut. So the idea then is all you have to do is select the bills, go into submit draft payment, and then from there, you're going to be able to send a payment directly from your Revolut bank account, which is obviously going to be a huge benefit and a huge time saving for people who need to make payments and everything else. The fact that they've already introduced some form of authorization solution as well is a good sign. And it's just something that will be clearly a benefit for anyone who's on both Revolut and ClearBooks. Ash, what do you think to that? Do you think that's a solution that could be useful if we got it here over at QuickBooks Land?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a great time saver, but I think what has to be pretty important are just the security measures in place, because that's what always sits in the back of my mind as someone that's, overseas finances. You don't want any old Joe logging into QuickBooks and basically ticking a few boxes and paying suppliers. I remember years ago, working for a company where someone within that company was actually creating bills which didn't exist with different account numbers. And what we don't want is that sort of thing, being easy to sort of create scams within it. So fantastic, as long as all of the security measures are there. What about you, Brad? How are you on that?
Well, a lot of the banking talk, I think it's in the early stages here in Canada, but okay. I'll kind of share what I hear, out of the US. For years, they've been talking about QuickBooks Capital, lending mechanisms where they can basically use the metrics that you have within QuickBooks Online to make financing decisions. Intuit purchased Credit Karma, and there's a Credit Karma bank. I hear almost daily when I listen to podcasts, there's Credit Karma ads about this Credit Karma bank accounts. It's only a matter of time I've heard about QuickBooks Cash. There's QuickBooks, credit cards in the works and all these things. The one thing about Canada is that we always tend to get a lot of these, if you can call them innovations, later. So there's whispers of bank accounts and more involved financial tools within the tool itself. Now there's a tool right now that I've done a bit of promotion for called Fund Through, and it's a accounts receivable factoring tool. So basically what it does, it drills into your accounts receivable and it says, oh, you got these invoices here. Would you like to borrow against those? So they're actually ramping up their involvement with Intuit, and it's becoming more visible within the app. I think you're going to see more situations like that where you'll see preferred third parties kind of latching on and attaching themselves to QuickBooks, and maybe they'll get acquired. Intuit is sometimes hard to read as to whether they're going to develop something themselves or whether they're going to acquire it. But I can definitely see that happening. That's all the talk. south of the border, these banking sort of arrangements, and how Intuit is probably going to become a bank. So like early stage, definitely what you guys are saying about the UK seems kind of in between what's going on in America and what's going on here.
Yeah, and I suppose it's all about what benefits they can bring to it, isn't it? Because there's I think originally when they kind of brought the idea on stage about QuickBooks Bank, I certainly was really excited. I thought that's brilliant. But I think a lot of people were a little bit like, well, why do I need to do that? Because they already have a bank and they've already got it connected to QuickBooks. So the only way that any of these solutions will do anything is if they can bring that innovation with it, isn't it? And that they can do something a bit different, and they can make your life easier and make it worthwhile. Over here in the UK, we have a really frustrating solution where for our open banking policy, every 90 days we have to reconnect the bank account. So something as simple as getting rid of that could be it. But yeah, I mean, what sort of innovation do you think they've got to bring to make it worthwhile? Well,
the banking regulations in Canada are much different than America. I mean, in the financial meltdown in 2008, it showed just how vulnerable the American banking system is. They take more risk. There's also a lot more banks. If you ever talk to Americans about hooking up a tool like HubDoc, which logs right into your bank account, pulls down your statements, there's so many different security protocols in America that it's almost impossible to keep HubDoc connected. And I think they have those same problems with QuickBooks as well. In Canada, we just have a handful of major banks. They call them the chartered banks. And so it's been easier for them to kind of standardize a bit. So the connections are quite stable. We don't have a 90-day requirement. Some of the banks are actually going away from using screen scraping. And trust me, I'm just repeating words. I don't really necessarily know what they mean, but traditional ways of pulling the data down. And I actually helped a bank called CIBC, the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, with some of their early initiatives where they're actually have a different login methodology that is more secure. So instead, and it's what they call a direct connection. So it's much more stable. We are also able now in Canada, and the US, we actually got it before the US. So it's one of those areas where we got something sooner. Whereas a tool like HubDoc isn't as necessary because we can pull bank statements directly into QuickBooks Online. So CIBC is one of those banks, and I bank with CIBC personally. So when I need to do my own bank reconciliation, I don't have to log into the bank. I don't have to go to HubDoc. I just go and say, pull it down, and within 20, 30 seconds, my statement is there. I can view it, copy the balance I need, put it into the bank rec module, and good to go. And once I'm reconciled, because the bank feeds have done all the work, then the reconciliation is complete, and a copy of that downloaded statement goes along with it. Now, that bookkeepers love that stuff, right? Okay. So to me, it's kind of a balance where because the banks are conservative and maybe a little less innovative, they're a bit behind the times, but we have a fairly stable connection platform. Now, there are smaller entities called credit unions and, equivalent to sort of a savings and loan type arrangement. I don't think they have as much in the way of stability. But if you go with a main bank, one of the big banks, the connections are rock solid.
Awesome. I'm glad you've said about that, about bringing the bank and bank statements in as well, because
it's solid. Like when I found out about that, I actually spoke with Jamie Schulman, who's one of the co-founders of HubDoc, and said, "What do you think about Intuit bringing in the bank statements on their own?" And he said, "Good luck with that." But he said, "We've had nothing but issues with the security protocols for years, and the main banks have definitely made it more stable." And I think it's because they're moving towards standards. Yeah. We've never really had standards here. I understand in the UK, your banking strategies are actually quite advanced compared to ours. Like when it comes to checking and things like that. Yeah. We still take paper checks, and a lot of people still use them, and some people still follow the old way of doing things.
Yeah. And with that banking, or with the bank statements coming through, we had that on our end for a while, in terms of it was part of the beta of this new open banking regulation. Mm-hmm. and then it just got dropped. So the fact
Oh,
that
so
it's
you don't have it anymore?
no,
No, it's a feature, and it's staying. In fact, it was quite interesting because CIBC was the first bank to announce direct bank feeds.
Yeah.
Then I got involved with their beta, and they brought in all these offerings, and I tested them out, and they weren't really for me. They were geared to more of a larger bank, larger client base.
Yeah.
But I played around with it a bit, then I went back to the old way of doing things. But then I noticed all these other people on other major banks were getting their bank statements automatically, and I was like, well, where's CIBC? And I reached out to my contacts at CIBC and said, you guys are saying you're innovative, and yet you can't even pull bank statements in. And point taken, within 2 or 3 months, it was available. I motivated them to wake up a bit, and now it's there. So
okay.
it is a feature, and it's a very welcome feature.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's great. It was. I was expecting that we'd have it by now, but it just seems to, like you said, Aaron, we saw it in the horizon, and then it just disappeared.
Well, it was working in the beta. It was working brilliantly because I was using it all the time. But yeah, for whatever reason,
I'm surprised. Like they brought it here and it stayed here. It was just a matter of getting it. And we had the same thing. They told us for several years it was coming, and it came right from the main stage at QuickBooks Connect, and then it just went quiet for a while. So I think that as bookkeepers and accountants, we always have to temper our enthusiasm when it comes to these app partners, because the smart ones don't promise timelines. The ones that do say, oh yeah, it'll be here anytime, I think they're the ones that create the bad feelings with the community. They're better off just keeping their mouths quiet until it's available. Then they say, hey, look what we got for you, rather than, oh yeah, it's coming. And then it, like you guys are just saying, then it never comes, and it just creates a bit of a bad taste in everyone's mouth.
Yeah, definitely. I've that, or they're going to release it as the next. What we're up to, summer, is it next summer? Because we're in quarterly updates at the moment in that cycle. So maybe the summer quarterly update is we've now got this new feature, and literally all they do is put the tab on that they had from the beta. But yeah, it's the cynic in me. All right, cool. Further on from the Revolut news though, so I personally like the idea of having the pay bills button. I think innovations like that is going to be something that's going to really push whatever QuickBooks bank account looks like. If they can get innovations like that, I think that's going to help drive people in. And I think that's what they need to be able to make people make the switch. But the other one that we've seen, or interestingly that we've seen from Revolut as well, is a bit of a shift in the way that they're going to be moving forward. So they've actually not just have this idea of being able to connect nicely in with ClearBooks and have that whole idea of, having that great integration and having those synergies between the two, but also they're looking to create their own kind of bookkeeping-esque style directly in the bank itself. And we've seen this happening quite a lot. So Starling in the UK, Revolut, as I've mentioned, and they're slowly but surely getting more and more features, which are for your smallest clients, it will be all they will ever need. So, for example, the newest thing they've just released now is the chance that you can send an invoice directly from Revolut Business. And from there, you get a wonderful Pay Now button on it where you can accept card payments, bank transfer, and even Apple Pay. And it's as literally as simple as going into your app, pressing new invoice and pressing send. So it does seem like banks themselves are trying to catch up a little bit, aren't they? In the UK, we have our major banking partners, your NatWest, your HSBCs, and all that lot. They tend to go down the route of either acquiring, which is what NatWest did. They acquired a bookkeeping solution called Free Agent, or they're kind of trying to make their own version of it to various degrees of success. But the challenger banks, because they're obviously built on much more agile software and they're able to kind of change things much quickly and simply, they really are trying to take in the idea of being able to offer a bookkeeping solution directly within the bank, which I think for some clients is all they will ever need. But it is an interesting one to go through. Ash, what do you think to that? Do you think it's
well, I think we quickly said about this earlier on, Aaron, before we sort of started, but Well, I'm going to be honest. I hate that sort of thing. Now, I can see from the small business owner think, yeah, okay, I don't really need all this software. I just need something that's going to raise my invoices. Great. But then when it comes to the accountant or the bookkeeper further down the road, looking at what that person's done, things can get really messy. And then to take it a step further, when you want to actually do the accounts and the tax return, if we're using if I was using QuickBooks and I've got it, feeding into my tax software, it feeds in perfectly. If I'm then got clients that are using, the app from one of their banks and another one, then I can't just directly feed that off, into that map tax software. I'm going to have to go all around the houses, import CSV files. What is then going to, would normally take me a quick job, could take me a lot longer. And I don't even do accounts anymore, so I'm not even that bothered. But I'm thinking of all of my accountant friends and the pain that they might have to go through if they're faced with having to look at lots of different little bits of software that only does half the job. That's my 2 pennies worth.
Well, I kind of agree with you, Ash, in that I view the accounting software industry, the way it's evolved and the way it is today, and the way it's kind of always been, is that there's always just a handful of standard offerings in each marketplace. In the UK, I know when I visited there 2 years ago, my buddy Andrew Wall and I were there, and we asked the question, what is the dominant player here? And the answer we often got was that Xero is a big player, but Intuit has been catching up, and they're fairly evenly split across the two. North America, this is Intuit country. It's Intuit dominates the market here. Xero is the scrappy upstart, but they have a fairly good-sized piece of the market. Sage got kind of late to the game. They're getting better at it, so they're playing a bit. I think that if you start throwing more and more GL standards into the mix, it's just going to complicate matters. And what I was thinking about what you just said, Ash, about, you don't want to have to do this little bit here, done here, and a little bit here. Well, what about from the business owner's perspective? What if they decide to change banks? What if they want to scale their business? With a tool like QuickBooks or Xero or Sage, you can scale your business because those are big established companies that are constantly innovating on the GL front. They're integrating with more apps. They're making acquisitions. They're getting better and better and better at what they do. It's what they specialize in. So, to have a bank come along and say, oh yeah, we're going to do that too, I think it's crazy, because banks aren't that innovative when it comes down to it. And even some of the smaller banks, as you're mentioning, they're trying. But to me, the smarter ones are going to try to align themselves with these other players and say, how can we throw our sort of way of doing things on your GL and do strategic partnerships? I'm not convinced that bringing in more and more GLs into the mix is going to be a good long-term solution. And I think you're going to see the banks regret it once they go down that road. In a similar vein, we started this conversation out about how, these accounting packages start trying to become banks. Are they going to be able to compete with real banks? So it's kind of like they're getting into each other's lanes. I still feel that the software companies are going to win this battle, because to me, you can offer a lot of banking solutions for the average business without having to get too complicated. You can offer a checking account, a savings account, a line of credit, some borrowing facilities, things like that quite easily, and offer, all kinds of little perks. But can the bank offer really great accounting software that has, good dashboards and accounts receivable collection? And are they going to work with other apps? Things like that. Do they have integrations? So I don't think it's necessarily a wise move to go down that path.
I agree, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think in the UK, those banks won't be able to offer new, innovation in terms of other apps, because open banking will prevent it from happening for them, because it's rightly so, it's restrictive as what you can and can't do with a bank these days because of security and everything else that comes with it. I think the only the only devil's advocate I'd say, and I'm completely with everything you guys have said. I mean, right, we don't want, we'd certainly, well, a bank offering a full-blown bookkeeping solution does sound like bad news, but I do think the only time it could be beneficial is with making tax digital. So in the UK, we're going down to quarterly submissions for our self-assessments, and we're going to have to go down the idea that every quarter we're going to have to submit what we earned in that particular quarter. For your smallest of small kind of contractors, I guess that would make sense for them, so they don't have to have a separate piece of software, because I know they are getting very upset, if you like, or a little bit kind of worried about the idea that they're going to have to get separate software involved to just submit their making tax digital submission. So possibly that could be kind of a revenue stream for them, but it's, you know, it's not a major part in the small business community, and it's, you know, it definitely, as you've already said, it's definitely going to prevent them from being able to scale at any rate. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting landscape to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I can, what you just said about certain niches could benefit from it that won't necessarily need software, a third-party package. I can definitely see that, but there are limitations. I just don't see the banks really focusing on innovation that the software companies do.
Yeah, my only worry on that is that most small business owners I've come across try to use one bank account for their business and personal transactions, and they try to link that, and it all goes absolutely the wrong way. So I'll just say no, don't even go there.
Good point.
I just have to put it all as business expense and be done with it. All right, okay. With that, then that's the end of the news. So Ash, over to you with our main topic.
So yeah, Brad, thanks again for joining us. I know it was, I managed to catch a little bit of QuickBooks Connect in Canada a couple of weeks or so ago. Managed to jump onto one of your Zoom calls very briefly.
Yeah, you look very tired. It was getting late in the day, but it was nice to see you.
It was at least sort of 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I think, when I got on, so it wasn't too bad. I caught a couple of things in there. One I liked in particular, and I mentioned it to Aaron earlier, was the the payroll software that the QuickBooks payroll area that's there, and the way that will automatically, if it's set up to pay those payroll taxes. Was that? I mean, I take it that was quite a new feature.
QuickBooks Payroll, the built-in payroll system into QuickBooks Online, is kind of a maligned, very misunderstood offering. When they first offered it several years ago, it wasn't actually developed by Intuit. It was an acquired application that they tried to slot in, and they didn't have a very good time with it. For several years, they actually offered it free to the general public. And frankly, I used to say, well, who would pay for this? Because it just wasn't a very good tool. They've definitely refined it over time. It's a very basic payroll system. There's certain limitations, certain payment sort of items that you just can't do very well, deductions, things like that. But for an average salaried hourly payroll, it does it quite well. And yeah, they definitely have that, and pretty much all the payroll apps here will remit on your behalf. They just pull the money off the check like anything else, hold it in trust, and then submit it to the CRA, and then they have reporting around that. So the CRA is the Canada Revenue Agency, so it's our inland revenue. But yeah, it's been a feature of payroll offerings up here for a long time, both QuickBooks related and non-QuickBooks related.
Oh, that's cool. I just thought that we don't have, well, we can't make any payments at all out of QuickBooks files, even with apps, currently. The other thing I wanted to, just mention, and we sort of mentioned it briefly before we went on air, is the whole NetSuite thing that's coming in, and and some you can't sometimes watch a YouTube clip. Well, I can't sometimes without a NetSuite ad seems to appear from nowhere.
Yeah, they're kind of everywhere right now, aren't they?
Yeah, or you turn on the radio and something drops down against them. So, I mean, have you had a little bit of a look at it? Or see
Well,
what it does?
I mentioned to you guys offline that I have a desire to get into the mid-market space. So I find the average QuickBooks Online user is what I call a micro business. They're often 1 or 2 person shops, maybe a little bit bigger, but they tend to be on the small side. There's not a lot of inventory needs, things like that. And I enjoy that part of business, and I've got to know a lot of small business owners. A lot of my clients play in that space. But before I went out on my own, I worked in the mid-market. So companies with up to 100 million maybe in revenue, 20 to 30 employees, multiple locations, often inventory needs, things like that. Well, QuickBooks Online, right out of the box, does not handle those scenarios very well. In fact, you're kind of crippled. So I've always wanted, I've looked at the mid-market as an area that I really enjoy, but in the cloud accounting space, we were quite limited what we could use. You can try and use QuickBooks Online. It's not the most effective tool. QuickBooks Desktop is actually the tool of choice for many players in that space. Problem is, it's not a true cloud accounting solution by any stretch. You can host it in the cloud, in a virtual server environment. In fact, a lot of people consider themselves sophisticated because they go, well, look, I'm in the cloud. I have to log in on the internet and I can access it from home. And they think that's what being in the cloud is all about, not understanding the broader description of apps and APIs and things like that. So I've really been interested in that mid-market space, and we have very few players in that space. There's Sage Intacct, which has a high barrier to entry, very high, even for an individual like me. I'm a sole practitioner. I do strategic arrangements with other pro advisors, but generally speaking, I'm on my own. Well, I'm too small to be Sage Intacct. They expect me to have a team surrounding me. So NetSuite has been poking around the mid-market space here in Canada, and they don't really worry about that as much. They're interested in Brad, the QuickBooks personality, I'll say. I'm a bit of an influencer. I don't like that term. I shouldn't be calling myself an influencer because it's not a term you should really use to describe yourself, but I do have some influence. And of course, NetSuite, which is, if people don't know that, is owned by Oracle. They're a large Silicon Valley company, and they're showing a lot of interest in me. The problem I'm facing right now is less about the tool itself and more about their messaging. They tend to come off as very anti-QuickBooks, saying, well, haven't you outgrown QuickBooks yet? QuickBooks is holding you back. QuickBooks is bad. Get off it. Come to our world. So I'm kind of struggling with the messaging because Intuit is a very important company to me, personally, professionally. I know the CEOs, the last 2 CEOs in Silicon Valley, personally, by name. I've spent time with them. The minds of management here in Canada, they mean a lot to me. They've invested a lot of effort into developing me and the brand that surrounds me. NetSuite seems more interested in just exploiting that. Yeah. And I'm having challenges trying to figure out how I'd reconcile the messaging. If I want to go into that mid-market space, how can I do that while at the same time supporting QuickBooks Online on the other hand? Now, what QuickBooks Online does have in the works, and it's available in America, I don't know where it stands right now in the UK, but is QuickBooks Online Advanced. Where are you guys on that tool? Is it available yet? I know it's supposed to be there.
Yeah, we're waiting for it. We know it's coming. It's been told it's coming. We just don't know anything other than that.
But I've looked at QuickBooks Online Advanced. The problem I have with it, it just looks like QuickBooks Online in many ways, except they have some added functionality, some built-in integrations. If you're familiar with the Fathom tool, when you get QB Advanced, you get Fathom built in. And it's not even necessarily built in. It's just kind of skinned to look like it's built in. You're just getting a complimentary account. Other tools, like there's a backup tool. I don't remember what it's called. Intuit purchased them. And basically, made it only work with QuickBooks Online Advanced. And they're starting to bring in other apps like that. They have strategic partnerships. So, I don't know if you guys follow the Cloud Accounting podcast with David Leary and Blake Oliver, but they talk about this a lot. And is it getting to the point that mid-market software is just a core offering with a bunch of third-party apps thrown in? If that's the case, what's the point when I can be the one to decide and help my client decide on which apps they want? The client shouldn't necessarily have to buy this software. Oh, by the way, you get all these tools you don't even want or need. So I'm sort of at this crossroads where I'm trying to decide what to do with the rest of my life. I really enjoy the mid-market. I'm definitely going to have a chat with NetSuite just to see what it's all about and see, who knows, maybe I'll like what I see. It is an ERP offering. It's a full-blown ERP with a lot more advanced CRM features, a lot more advanced inventory management and things like that. I've heard it's actually behind the times in some areas. So I really, instead of just speculating, it's probably time to go look and decide for myself if I want to join that space or not.
Yeah, it's interesting because as an app developer, I tried to reach out to them because I had a look through their website to see if I didn't know if they had a fixed asset register. I think they do actually have something built in. To see if I could sort of get some sort of login, even just to have a poke around, but I didn't seem to get anywhere with it. But I guess actually it's just on a similar sort of theme with apps and everything. We've had QuickBooks for years, and then they add bits to it, as you'd expect. And then sometimes and we've spoken about, like the banks coming in. And sometimes, do you think that actually that you can have too much of everything in one basket? Like with, all of a sudden, so we've spent a few years developing our app, and then, it could be that in a year's time, they'll have their own fixed asset register, which then can sort of screw what I've done. And then you'll have the same with other app providers that, they've been doing things, and then all of a sudden Intuit has built something in that does what another app's done. And then does that actually think, well, should an app provider, bother, creating an app anymore for a particular company if they think, well, what's the point? Because they might actually just go and create one next year. So it's sort of, sometimes you think and it's the same with the year-end accountancy packages. So I don't know what you're the main one over there in Canada, but sort of in the UK, we've got Iris accounting and accountancy manager and lots of other Digita and other areas that we can, we'll use to file our year-end accounts. But then all of a sudden, QuickBooks then builds another little bolt-in within the QuickBooks Online Accountant dashboard where, well, now you can file your client's corporation tax or so all of those other businesses that for years and years and years have built up something for filing tax returns. No, they're not needed because QuickBooks has built something. So I don't know, how do you feel about all those sort of things?
Well, there's that fine line. The problem I've always had with the standard desktop offerings, whether it be in Canada, QuickBooks Desktop, and Sage has an offering they call Sage 50. It used to be simply accounting, and before they acquired it. I find that both those tools, liken it to, say, Microsoft Excel, where there's so much functionality built in, but you only use 10% of it. And that's often the case with these offerings. I think that they overbuild them and overcomplicate them. Like, I find Sage is notorious for just putting in all these features that the majority of people don't even need. So I tend to question why some of these software companies should even overbuild their core offerings. And I've spoken with many in the Intuit dev community from the Intuit side about that. And they really want, and Ash, as an app partner, that Intuit can be very supportive over your efforts to a reasonable degree. I mean, they show a lot of love, and I've heard they can stop showing love just as easily. But at the same time, they tend to fall back on, look, we have this app marketplace and we encourage a strong app community and we encourage innovation. But then you'll see, let's say when they purchased T-Sheets a few years ago, which they've completely taken the T-Sheets name away. It's now called QuickBooks Time. It's becoming more and more baked right in. So where are they drawing the line, what they want to include and what don't they want to include? Maybe it is that their long-term goal is to have an all-encompassing solution that kind of makes apps obsolete. I certainly hope they don't do that. But I think you're going to see over time, they're going to go down their old kind of path and keep adding stuff, maybe through acquisition, maybe through internal development. You know, we're all familiar with a tool now called Dext, obviously Receipt Bank, a British company. For the longest time, there was so much speculation. Well, when's Intuit going to just buy them and bake it right in? And then all of a sudden they came out with their own receipt offering that on the surface looked like a competitive tool until you look at it and realize it's super basic. It does the basics. Receipt Bank still has a lot more to it. And I still recommend to my clients, they consider a tool like Dext because of the power and the automation and things like that. So, you know, speaking with Intuit about that, why did you guys bring out this tool? They said, well, we've always had that tool. It just wasn't as nice. Now we're just polished it up a bit. We don't really have a desire to go further down that path. How much we believe that is anyone's guess. But yeah, I think there will be a fine line between developing their own stuff. What I'm seeing capital asset side of things is that I don't see that ever happening. The desktop offering here in Canada has a fixed asset piece that is frankly horrible. It's a terrible piece of software that shouldn't even be in there. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't integrate with anything. It's just a way to enter stuff in manually. It's got a light integration with accounts payable, but even that, it's not very good. To me, it's utterly useless. In the US, they have the fixed asset manager, which is a little more advanced, but from what I understand, it's not that great. So from your perspective, I think you've got some lead time to stay ahead of the curve. But yeah, it's hard to know what will be next. From what I understand, Intuit likes acquiring things, and they don't always do a great job of bringing them into the product. A lot of times they end up just shutting them down. So it remains to be seen where they hope to go with that. I do like some of the innovation that's happening within the tools itself, and they don't seem to be necessarily app-related things. It's little things that have been needed all along. Just simple things like in the built-in CRM, now we can have customer types. Wow.
I caught that on.
Yeah, wow, that's an innovation. No, I should have been there years ago. Yeah. They're bringing tags in, which to me is a nice move because it's now allowing you at multiple levels to add other ways of slicing and dicing your data that aren't predefined in any real rigid fashion. That's a good thing. So I like seeing innovations like that. The bank feed innovation, that was huge when they brought in bank statements and things like that. You know, real world sort of problems being solved. The bank feeds within QuickBooks Online are fantastic compared to the desktop version. I would not want to use a third-party bank feed tool, for example. I'm glad it's baked in, and it is powerful, and it's a great tool for small businesses. So, yeah, I think it's a fine line. Give it time. Your guess is as good as mine. Intuit, I find, as much as I love them and adore them, they're very unpredictable, and they can be very off-putting sometimes with some of their decisions. So give it time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other quite recent. I mean, are you using the sort of month-end review within your QuickBooks files?
Well, I don't provide third-party periodic sort of reporting for my clients. I'm more of an operational accountant in that I show businesses how to use the software. I help them set up. I do conversion and training, but I'm not providing those those other services that are really more in the realm of those public accounting type businesses where you are providing bookkeeping and year-end services. Now, I do play around with them in my own business just to see how they work. And it's definitely getting better because now I can jump in and look at these instant dashboards and metrics that should be looked at. Undeposited funds, there's stuff in there. Accounts that have balances that shouldn't. Maybe clearing accounts have balances that shouldn't. Or an account that's normally positive is now in a negative position. They'll flag that. Things like something might be in a miscellaneous account and they're out there saying, well, here's all these miscellaneous transactions. Should they be here? Should they be elsewhere? So I think they're really making a great effort at being proactive. And they're thinking what's important is I found that in the early stages of QuickBooks Online, it's kind of like they haven't really spoken with a bookkeeper or an accountant. There's some development guy out there that thinks he's creating something, but he doesn't really think like an accountant or a bookkeeper. Now it is obvious that more and more accountants and bookkeepers from the real world, and I know a lot of them that are involved, their input is being incorporated into the tool itself. So what you just mentioned, Ash, a dashboard like that, you can tell there's input because I can glance at it from my own business. Even though I don't need to do a lot of that because of my accounting background, it's still nice to have a quick glance and say, yeah, everything's good. I can get on with my day. Things like unreconciled transactions, how long it's been since you've done a bank rec, it's just everything's in one place. And I think for a business owner, they could really leverage some of those tools by just knowing there's certain metrics you have to stay on top of. And this dashboard is going to show you what you need to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you've just said there because there's certain bits that I've just picked up on in terms of how it seems like obviously America is always going to be the first to get all of the new toys, isn't it? When we come to innovation,
except for bank statements, we got them here first. We were the guinea pig.
And you're holding on to that one.
Their faces, they didn't like that, but it was easier. I mentioned we had like 7 banks to deal with or whatever. Down there, they had probably 700. So,
but because of that, I always keep an eye on America in terms of their.
And you should.
Product. Yeah, it's because it's a great indication of what's coming to ours, or what we hope is going to come to ours later down the line. Just to circle back a little bit more, Tags is in the UK already, and it's a game changer. It's absolutely amazing. Like, yeah, we love Tags here. It's all about for us discoverability. The idea you could tag to say, please review this, or client to provide a receipt or whatever it's going to be. Absolutely.
And you can create new reports now that you couldn't do before because, we had location tracking, class tracking, but you're still limited what you can do in there. Now, all of a sudden, you can just create a tag for anything you feel like and start programming against it. And I think that's fantastic. Now, one thing we were just talking about innovation and how America gets everything first. I had a really interesting discussion with, you guys must remember Rich Priest, who obviously he's a Brit and he came over to the US. Now he's with LegalZoom. But he told me that it's actually the UK market they like to test things on. You guys will probably appreciate this. It's because, as he put it, we make a lot of noise and we whinge a lot more than you polite Canadians. And we like to use the UK as a test bed to try new things out as well. It's a very important beta market for us, is how we put it.
Yeah, I mean, we'd certainly whinge on it on here. So yeah, they probably.
And of course, Rich is a perfect gentleman all the time, but he was even quick to point out that as a culture, we're the ones that are going to complain the loudest. So, that's not lost on Intuit. So, kudos to you guys for pushing the envelope because I think we all need to. In Canada, we're louder than people think we're so polite and submissive. We're not. We're just do it in a different way. We complain, but we tend to smile while doing it, but we still complain.
Yeah, definitely. One of the innovations that I'm really interested in over America, though, is the integration with Amazon. The whole idea of bringing that in has that made it over to Canada yet, or is that still?
There's a lot of e-commerce integrations in the works. That's one of those tools that during the QuickBooks Connect main stages they always talk about these e-commerce integrations. Of course, the world's largest e-commerce platform is Shopify, and that's a Canadian company. During the pandemic, they've done exceptionally well. In fact, a lot of people are viewing Shopify storefronts as a way better alternative to being locked into Amazon's way of doing things.
Definitely.
So I think you're going to see a lot more of e-commerce innovation. E-commerce is very, like, there's so many people out there that just say, oh, how hard can it be to tie it all in? Whereas, you know, I investigated going into the e-commerce space, and I watched some e-commerce people talk on Friday Night Live with Accountants, which is a show that I co-host, but I wasn't always a co-host. I used to just listen in. And one night they had some e-commerce people on, and they started talking about the pitfalls and all the challenges. And I thought, you know what, I don't want to do this, because there's so many different ways for e-commerce sellers to go about their business, whether it be through Amazon or Shopify. And then there's all these other tools that I think Intuit has to listen and start to integrate Amazon type technologies and reconciliations and things like that into their systems, because that's where people are doing business. These platforms that are just turnkey. You pay your money and you get on the platform, you can start selling within hours. Well, if you can't do the accounting for that, then what good is it to them? So, and of course, Intuit and Xero are going to be right on that. And I think e-commerce is definitely one of the hottest areas that is still underserved by many. Anyone I know in that space is really good at it, because they've specialized and they've done the homework and they've gone through the headaches and they've pulled their hair out trying to make it all work. You know, the big challenge is keeping all your marketplaces synced up, keeping inventory in line, making sure that the sales are recorded correctly, making sure the cash flow is all captured correctly. Even the seller costs and expenses that go along with it is a challenge. And there haven't been real set standards. It has to happen. I mean, I think the pandemic only showed that e-commerce is something that not only has it been around for a long time, but the people that weren't using it before now are using it, and they're not going to go back to bricks and mortar. They're going to go to Amazon. And of course, Amazon is like quadrupled their value or whatever. It's like it's some unheard of number. They've just got bigger and bigger and more stronger and have more market power, but they're also hiring a lot more people. They're spending a lot more money on innovation. So, I mean, you have no choice now but to follow their lead.
Definitely. And I think QuickBooks are doing the right things, because they've acquired TradeGecko and they've acquired OneSAS. So both of them are, you know, you've got your bigger companies sorted now for integration, and now you've got OneSAS, which just means that everyone can connect to all the marketplaces, and it works beautifully. So yeah, Intuit definitely are going in the right direction and ready for that. I think the bit though in America that really intrigues me about the Amazon integration is about have you seen the bit about purchases, where you can bring the actual Amazon business account feed directly in, almost like a bank account? That's one area I've not been able to play with or try, because I don't have a US Amazon account. Have you seen that at all? Have you seen that in working?
It's interesting you say that, because I have my personal account, like I think we all have, whether it be Amazon UK or America. I actually have an American account as well. Yeah. But Amazon Canada is really pushing me. They've actually said, congratulations, Brad, you have qualified for an Amazon business account.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What does that even mean? And I looked through it and I don't see any benefits really that really I'm jumping around and getting excited about. Well, they're starting to bring in more and more innovations. And just the other day, you know, I get a notification. We have granted you terms. We'll give you net 30 terms on all purchases. You can save your money for 30 days, you know, buy what you need and only pay for it in 30 days. I'm thinking, that doesn't sound like necessarily a great thing, the way that we, you know, but I can see they're going down that path where they want to distinguish Brad, the consumer, versus Brad, the business owner. And they incorporate the two accounts quite nicely. It allows you to jump back and forth. But I can see something like that coming, where, you know, not only do you get financing terms, but special functions only available to business users of the platform. And that no doubt will include more robust ways to manage the accounting around it all. And I can see that being much more robust and integrated. I think that's where they're going. If I were a betting man.
Yeah,
I'm not, so don't quote me on that.
Yeah, we're just intrigued how that functionality works.
Oh, it's inevitable. Let's face it. I mean, I remember when Amazon first got started, they sold books.
Yeah, exactly.
And
right.
they didn't make money forever. And everyone's like, they sell books. Like, so what? They sell books. Well, I don't remember the last time I bought a book from Amazon, right? But we buy everything else from Amazon. You can find just about anything on Amazon. It's always the first place we go to at least see if it's available. And then, of course, I can have this in a few hours if I order in the next hour and a half. And, little things like that. This instant gratification part of it has become huge. So definitely I can see the business side of it getting way more robust just based on what I've told you. It is available. I didn't ask to join Amazon Business. All of a sudden I had an account and they're like, have at her. Honestly, I haven't seen the benefit yet, but I think they're going to start showing me benefit.
No.
All right. Okay, I think we better start wrapping it up, guys, because we're getting towards the half hour, aren't we? I just want to say, Brad, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to have a chat with you guys. And I've mentioned to you, Ash, I have fond memories of the UK. I've only been there twice, but we were there for Connect a few years back, and some of my best mates are there. And if Raggy and Stranger are out there, here's how's it going, guys? I like being around Brits for several years in Bermuda. I really learned to appreciate British people from England and beyond. I didn't like you much for the first few weeks I was down there. I didn't get the humor. I didn't know about taking the piss. I didn't quite like it. But someone said to me, if they're taking the piss out of you, it's because they like you. If they don't, it's because they don't. So I really appreciate being able to talk to you guys and the UK audience out there.
I'll just say Charlie. Charlie Khan.
Of course I do. Hi, Charlie.
He's on it. He said that he does most of the binding, and I think that's absolutely true because I've met Charlie a few times.
Charlie's a good man. We hung out when we were there 2 years ago. He was out with us till all hours of the night. Probably whinging, but I don't know.
So was it 2 years ago? So the last one you came to was that Beast from the East? Yeah, was that right?
Yeah, it was 2019. We were kind of slated to come for 2020. Of course, this pandemic hit and all hell broke loose. I'd love to get back. We had a lot of fun there. It's a different sort of show than it is in North America. I've been to San Jose 5 times. I've been to Toronto 3 times. But it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. We spent some time with the dev team. We did the app showdown or whatever they call that, the hackathon. Had a wonderful time.
Awesome.
I think the next one that's either in US or Canada, Aaron, we ought to sort of take a trip out there.
Sold.
Well, I think what you're going to see is you guys just had your virtual version a few months ago. I actually got up for that. I'm that hooked on the QuickBooks Connect concept that I'll wake up at 2 a.m. to go to the UK version where I didn't even know what the heck was you guys were talking about half the time, but it was just to say I was there. The Canada one just went. They've got the American one coming up in a few months. But from what I'm hearing, that's it for virtual conferences. 2022, they'll be going back to the real world with everyone being vaccinated. And I think we'll get an opportunity to do these things in person. So definitely go. Ash, it's too bad we didn't meet you when we were there. Would have had a lot of fun together, but I understand you were training that day.
Yeah, so. I was actually training.
You think they would give you the day off to go to QuickBooks Connect, right?
Yeah, but we could train while the Connect's on.
I'll always remember that one. I couldn't believe it when you said about that, but yeah, crazy.
It's a wonderful conference. It changed. It turned me into the QuickBooks fanatic that I am today. The QuickBooks Kool-Aid is applied very aggressively, and you become a big fan just because they're such fantastic hosts.
Yeah.
You're willing to look beyond sometimes some of the weaknesses of the product and the brand, because you know the people behind the company are good people and they know how to have a good time.
Yeah. And they're trying, aren't they? The
I
weaknesses
agree.
we pick out of these weaknesses, and it's because we want, we want to innovate it, we want to keep pushing it. But yeah, they're trying. It's just
I agree, and that's why
patience.
back to that NetSuite discussion, I'm struggling because they're pretty much they're insulting my family. That's what it feels like. I find that Intuit's kind of like an extended family. I really have that kind of relationship with them. It's beyond just a professional relationship, and I kind of take it a bit personally when I hear ads like that. I'm okay when 0 people take a little jab and we do back, but we generally want the same thing because the tools are very similar. It's no different than, if I use an iPhone and you're using an Android phone, and like, who cares? As long as you're using a smartphone, have at it. I don't care what kind you're using. But there's a point where it just goes a little too far, and that's where I struggle.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. All right, Brad, again, thank you very much. Is there anything you want to promote, push? You want anything that's coming out that you want people to listen to? Or,
I'd love to say, come check us out at Friday Night Live with Accountants. We've tried to really bring on the UK guests. Ash, you were a great, a big sport. What time did you have to get up? 3 a.m.
I didn't go to bed. I just stayed awake.
Yeah, exactly. We've had, it's hard for us to schedule the UK guests. The Australians are easy because it's actually Saturday morning for them. We do it at 10 o'clock Eastern every Friday. It's a simulcast Zoom session. We just bring on people from the community and we just talk to them. We don't have a set agenda. We kind of emphasize and we kind of utilize the fact we've met so many wonderful people in this community in our travels, including to the UK, that we just want to kind of give back and talk with the people that we admire so much about what they're up to. And so there's it is available on Facebook after the fact. A lot of our listeners actually listen the next day anyways. So we're Friday Night Live with Accountants. Look us up. If you want to get up at 4 a.m, like Ash did, or 3 a.m., love to have you as a guest. There's a lot of really great personalities in the UK. I tried to get Carl Reeder on, and he just laughed at me and says, "Brad, I'm in bed by 10 o'clock every night. It's just I might look all rough and tough, but I'm really a softie. I need my beauty sleep." So
brilliant. I'm sure he'll get. You can twist his arm. Yeah, you'll be able to twist his arm. Just you'll get him on at some point. Maybe when you are here in the UK, you should do a live UK time on. And
that was a lot of the reason why they brought us over. We did a lot of live broadcasts right from the venue. A lot of it was back home. We were live streaming. There's a few live streams that maybe we shouldn't have live streamed. Leaving the receipt bank party, headed to the practice ignition party after being at a party with free alcohol for a little while. So maybe we were a bit more animated than we might have been normally, but it was fun. It was fun. It wasn't too bad.
These things happen, don't they? Live work and all that lot. You know what I mean?
Well, I think ultimately, just because we're accountants and bookkeepers doesn't mean we have to follow any sort of stereotype or stigma. There's a lot of fun people out there. And I think that's where Intuit really has distinguished themselves, is they come on, let's have a good time. It's all community. And, I don't think they minded the fact we were walking down the street in the UK with a few drinks in us and telling everyone what was on our mind.
I wish I would have been there.
Oh, next time.
Yeah,
I just got to convince Nick Williams to get us back out there. He was our champion to get us out the first time, and he tried to get us the second time.
Okay.
So maybe have a chat with Nick and maybe see if he can get you over here.
When the next one comes up, we'll drop an email, Aaron.
Yeah, I think that's got to be done, hasn't it?
Nick's a good man. Nick's a good man.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
All right, gentlemen.
Thank you
so much. I appreciate you having me, and it was a lot of fun.
Been an honor to have you on. Absolutely.
Likewise.
Okay, so let's just get everyone up to date with what's coming in. So we've not set a date yet for next time, have we?
In a fortnight.
is the 30th of June. So we'll go for the 30th of June. And then you might need to change that date if something pops along.
That might be a fortnight. It might not be.
10:30 a.m. US Central Time. As always, Ash, thank you very much. And Brad, it's been an absolute honor to have you on today. That's just goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Ciao. Cheers again, Brad. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.